What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be showing you the Fire Beast raid and discussing like good ways to beat it. So first off, you saw probably at the beginning there he did a move called Fire Minion Summoning. I'll show you the ability after the Groggy stage. It hides them for some reason during this. But basically he'll attack you and summon a bunch of minions, right? So you'll see that they're kind of like little crystal things. You just need to bring some AoE to take them out, because if you don't kill them in time, they'll suicide into you and explode, dealing damage to your whole raid, right? So this is the Fire Minion Summon. He summons 8 adds. You can see it that he just used it just then. So those crystals floating there. So you want to bring a couple of AoE units, preferably with short cooldowns, to get rid of this. And each time he does his ability, the fire minions will have more HP. It's not as bad as the other abilities on the other bosses. Like if you can one-shot these minions, then chances are you probably would one-shot them later on, as long as your AoE is not too weak, obviously. So yeah, he does this a couple of times, and you just make sure you have like short cooldown AoEs for it. Okay, so for my team, I've got Beth there, just the primary AoE unit, because she has a two-turn cooldown on her second skill. So putting her on Violent allows her to keep that up fairly often. Then there's also Zyros there, who provides attack lead for me, and he also has 2 AoE abilities as well. If you don't have Zyros, an alternative is to bring a Soha, who also has an AoE, only 1 AoE, but it's still pretty decent, and she provides attack power leader for water units. So obviously, because it's a fire boss, you'll probably be stacking a lot of water units in your team. So Soha is a very good unit for this fight. Water Nine Tails, Soha being the Water Nine Tails. And the second ability on the boss is the generic ability that they all have, which is Fawn of Despair. It does damage based on how much defense you have on your front line. So we only hit the front line unless they're dead. If they're dead, it will hit the back line and does a lot of damage to your back line, right? So try to have a couple of units that can survive the front line. They don't need to be that tanky for this boss, because I think it's because it's a very AoE based boss, so he doesn't do that much to the front line. So my Shaolin can tank perfectly fine, and I have a Rigel in the front line, who is actually on an crit damage attack build, but he's got like some semi-decent defense and HP subs for Necro, and it just so happens that he's able to tank in the front line as well. Doesn't have to be these units, obviously. Any DPS that you can give them like semi-decent tanky subs will work. Preferably on Vampire if you can, but not necessary. It just helps to give them a bit of extra health recovery, especially if they're a good burst damage unit. So obviously Shaolin has good burst damage, so she can heal herself back to full pretty much on her own. Yeah, but other units you could use Colleen. If you don't have a Huahi and you need to use a Colleen as your attack buffer and healer, you can put her in the front line. You can, if you need a second healer, you want to run like a Bella maybe, you could run Bella, because Bella provides a defense break for the Groggy stage 2, so that's decent for this fight. You could run like Trevor if you run Trevor in other raids. He does good burst damage too, and he can be built, or you probably want to build him like reasonably tanky. Broad as well helps keep him alive too, so he can do that too. But yeah, there's definitely many units you can use. If you're unsure if that unit can tank it in the front, just let me know. As long as you have the stats for the unit, you could use almost anything. But I've even made like a very tanky Sig that used to be able to survive in R5 when it first came out, you could probably do the same thing. Like Sig has very good base stats, and he's got good AoE for this fight. And if you are struggling to survive, you don't have enough HP, you can always use Sig's HP lead, because it's a dungeon lead which works in this area. So that's another option you could use. Apart from that, you just want some good single target burst damage. So Beth can provide some decent single target damage, and obviously Tor does really good single target burst damage, right? So you want the burst damage to get do as much damage on the groggy stage as possible, and then you want the damage during the non-groggy stage to kill the boss as soon as possible. So you don't want the boss to summon too many minions, otherwise, if he summons too many, then you might have trouble killing them eventually if your units don't have the damage that is required for it. And of course, similar to the other raids, you want to have defense break and attack buff where possible, right? So Hua He is a very good unit for this because she has a 3-turn attack buff. If you don't have a Hua He, well, you don't have the skill ups to make her able to solo heal in this, then you can use Colleen instead, who provides very good healing as well, and a 3-turn attack buff. It's a bit better, I believe. I think it's actually around the same as Hua He's attack buff. Actually, I can't remember if Hua He's 2-turn or 3-turn, but I see that it is 3-turn. So so yeah, that's another option. The only difference is that Hua He provides extra damage, whereas Colleen's damage is very, she doesn't really add anything. But she's a good starting unit, so until you can get a max skilled Hua He, or at least max skilled on Amuse, then you can use Colleen instead. Apart from that, other units you could use, as I said, Sig is a decent AoE unit that's farmable. You can also, if you have a Julie, you can use Julie as well. She has good, Julie being the water Pirate, she's got good AoE, and I think decent single target damage. She's a nat 4, I guess it's reasonable that you might be able to get her. Who else could you use? You can use Tark as a single target damage dealer. He can also help refresh cooldowns, so he's pretty good for that. You could consider using the Water Magical Archer. I haven't actually tried it out. I have made one, but I haven't actually used it in this. But she also does the attack power leader. She does defense break on skill 1, so she's decent for this. And I believe she's got some decent single target damage, so that's an option. You could also use Fiormaz is a good fallback. He's got defense break on skill 2 and pretty good single target damage. A crit lead as well if you need a damage type leader. Who else can you use? You can use Stella for this as well. Stella is pretty good because she's got branding and defense break and very good single target damage. Actually, I think I haven't actually gone through all the abilities. Just let me go back into here. So we covered the Fire Minion Summoning and the Fawn of Despair. So there's also Fire Sweep. So I guess it's similar to some of the other bosses. This one's got a turn counter. As you can see, it's going up there. So every time you gain a turn, that ability will gain a stack. And when he does end up using that ability, it will do more damage, right? So the more stacks it has, the more damage it does. So try not to bring too many violent sets if you can, or maybe just for your healer and maybe your main AoE damage dealer. So for here, in my team, the main ones that have it, actually a lot of them have it because I need it for other purposes, but the main ones that I would want to have on Violet here are Hua He and Beth. Right? Because Beth's got the 2-turn cooldown on the second skill. I also want her to cool down the third skill so that she can use it early on the groggy stage. Let's see. I need to get out of the groggy stage to show you the other abilities, but he has the ultimate attack like the other ones. So this one removes all the beneficial effects on your team, and then does a whole bunch of damage to it. It's like a near wipe, pretty much. I believe that's all the abilities. So that's Fire Sweep, and then he just repeats the other abilities until he gets to the end, which is the Rageful Breath. And apparently also if there's any minions still around, he'll make them explode as well. Alright, so that's pretty much all the mechanics of the boss done. I feel that this guy is probably the easiest to build for. Like, there's a lot of farmable units that you can use in this, and in general, he doesn't hit very hard. So as long as you have decent AoE units, it's very easy to complete this boss. So I'll go through. I'll show you the runes on my units, and I guess that gives you an indication of how to get to like this sort of damage, right? Also, another unit I forgot. You can also use Yaku. Yaku's the Imp champion. He's actually pretty decent for this as a single target damage dealer. Especially because he's got Ignore Defense. So Ignore Defense is really good for the non-groggy stages, because you can only since you can't debuff the boss, he won't have defense break on him. So Ignore Defense is pretty good for this. And of course, you definitely want Attack Power Leader during that stage. Alright, so this is my Shaolin. You've probably seen this like many times. This is my Rigel. So Rigel is built for Necro, but he's got with these stats he tanks frontline pretty easily. So you can see you don't really need that much defensive stats to make him work. You can kind of sacrifice some damage for him, because I mean the main reason I use him is because he does pretty decent damage, and he's got a skill 2 defense break for the groggy stage, and he's got like tanky enough stats to stand in the front line as well. Okay, this is Zyros. So Zyros is built for PvP. I'm gonna change his runes, but this works fine in the fire raid. Your backline units don't need to be that tanky either, so don't be afraid to give up some tanky stats for them. But it helps obviously for survival and consistency. Because sometimes my run does fail if my units don't use the correct skills, like if I don't AoE like the minions in time, or if they like use up all their AoEs prior to that. Alright, this is my Tor. So Tor I've been showing quite a lot. His runes have not changed for a long time. I'm still trying to find some 6-star runes with like speed and crit rate on it to replace those runes, like the slot 5 and 6. But yeah, he's obviously very nice for this fight. Alright, this is my Beth. So to use Beth, if you have one for this fight, you want to have a like max gouge, right? Because this one will reduce the cooldown to 2 turns, preferably also the third skill, so that there's like for the cooldown reduction as well, and because this is like the main burst damage that she can deal. So these are her runes. If you happen to have Beth, you can also use her in the front line. That still works. Just give her some decent like defensive stats, because she's got really good base stats, pretty high HP, and pretty decent defense too for an attacker. So this is like one of the main areas I feel that Beth actually shines in. And oops, this is my Hua-He. So I would recommend putting her on violent, but the offset doesn't have to be violent. Ideally, like your units should be on like fight, ideally, but you kind of need to farm this raid to actually get the fight runes anyway. But yeah, that's like the main reason to farm this area, is to get those fight runes, and because it's very easy as well. So it's very convenient because it's the easiest one, and it's like the best rune set out of the new raids that are available for that you can farm for. Alright, so that's all the units and mechanics down. I hope this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, any units that you're unsure of for this fight or whatnot, feel free to ask me in comments and I'll answer you as soon as possible. Alright, so thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.